My son and his wife demanded I sign over my house or they'd declare me incompetent. I smiled, signed the papers, and the next morning they realized they'd signed their own eviction. My name is Raymond, and I was a husband for 42 years, a father longer than that, and a grandfather. I was a maintenance man most of my life. I fixed what broke, saved receipts, and wrote bills on a lined pad. I lived in this house since I was a young man with a full back and a louder laugh. I painted its rooms, laid tile on tired knees, and rubbed lemon oil into the table my wife and I ate. I liked things clear. I liked rules I could point to. I trusted work more than talk. I carried some soft habits, too. I smoothed fights with money and patience. I told myself that love meant absorbing the hit. It kept the peace. But that day, I had to fix something bigger. They came at noon. My son knocked twice and opened the door before I could answer. He knew the hinge stuck. He had helped me hang it when he was 20 and still gentle with tools. He never forgot small things. He had just stopped caring about them. He held a manila folder tight against his chest. His wife carried her smile like a stiff plate. I glanced past them to the driveway. Their trunk was open. A blue suitcase leaned against a folded stroller we had not used in years. The stroller was for show. The case was not. "We have to do this," she said, stepping in. "It is time to be practical." My son said nothing. He set the folder on the hall table like he was laying down a clean deed to the future. "What is this?" I asked, although I knew. I had felt it coming for months in the way they looked at my house like it was a prize on a shelf. Their eyes did the math of square footage when they visited. They walked with their shoes on. They measured with their glances and their silence. She opened the folder. "A transfer," she said. "We will handle repairs. You will not worry about bills. We will keep things updated. You can rest." "If I do not sign?" I asked. She looked to my son, and he finally spoke. "Dad," he said, in a voice he saved for stubborn clients, "this is for your own good. We love you. You are not keeping up. If you dig in, we will have to file. Incompetency. We cannot have you hurt yourself." I looked at him. At the jaw I used to shave when he was a boy. He did not meet my eyes. He looked at the crown molding. He had told me once that rich people look up when they want to appear bored. He was not rich. He was trying on the look. The words hit hard, but not because of the threat. They hurt because they were thin. They were practice lines. I saw my part in that. I had bailed him out of mistakes when he was young because I wanted him to float. I had used patience like a cushion. I was his cushion now, and he wanted to sit on me. "Let us sit," I said. We went to the kitchen. They placed the papers side by side. One was bold. "Quitclaim." She had the pen ready, uncapped. "There is a notary waiting," she said. "We can finish before lunch." I read the first lines and did not finish them. She mistook that for confusion. She leaned in with her brittle smile and patted my wrist. "Simple," she said. "No need to overcomplicate. Sign, and you can relax." I looked out the window. The roses in the yard had gone wild. My wife's roses. I had let them climb too high this summer. That part, at least, was true. I was not keeping up. I could feel my heart thump in my neck. I thought about the last 40 years. The rooms built around one marriage. The money saved one coupon at a time. The way fear makes people small. The way greed makes them louder. I set the pen down and kept my voice even. "Not today," I said. "I will sleep on it." Her mouth tightened. "This cannot wait." "It can," I said, and I stood. The chair legs scraped the tile in a sound that felt like a line being drawn. "Come back in the morning if you want this done." They looked at each other. The trunk gaped wider in my mind. They did not want to leave. They wanted to move in. Control first, paper later. "We will be back at 9, my son said. "Good," I said. I walked them to the door and watched them get into the car. When they drove off, I opened the folder again and read every word. Then I closed it and went to the sink and washed the cups clean, because clean things help a man think. I said I would sign in the morning. The house answered back when I walked it. The hall creaked in its usual spots, like an old friend calling my name. I touched the nick in the banister where my grandson ran his truck too hard and too fast. He had looked up at me, cheeks red, waiting for the shout that never came. I had laughed and told him to slow down. There is a kind of love that lets wood take the injury so a child does not have to. I believed in that kind. In the dining room, light fell across the table I had sanded and oiled after my wife's last round of chemo. I thought of the way her hand had rested on that table when she was tired. She used to trace the grain while we talked because it calmed her. I could still see that faint path in the finish when the sun hit right. I opened the old photo album. 4 of us in one frame. My wife, my son, my daughter, me. My son at 16 had the same mouth he had at noon. Stubborn. Wanting. He had stood next to me with his arm over my shoulder, leaning in, claiming me for the picture. If you had told me then that he would come back with a threat and a pen, I would have laughed you off my porch. Shame crept through me, slow and heavy. Not shame for the house. Not shame for being older or for the days I needed to sit. Shame for the ways I had let him swerve without consequence. For the times I paid a ticket and said, "Do better," and left it there. I built rooms and I built excuses, and my son learned that a door would always open if he pushed hard enough. I brewed tea. The kettle rattled hard when it boiled. I poured slowly, watched the steam, and felt something settle. The fear did not go, but it found its chair. I could sit with it and still think. I walked to the bedroom and pulled out the metal cash box from the closet shelf. Inside were papers that actually mattered. The insurance policy, the small ledger where I wrote checks for utilities, the letter from my doctor from last month that said I was fine to live alone and handle my affairs. I set them on the bed and read them like you read a map when you are not sure if you missed a turn 2 miles back. My phone lit up on the nightstand with a text from my daughter. A picture of my granddaughter in a school play dress, grinning under a crooked hat. I smiled. Then I thought about what would happen if I lost the house. Not just the space, the function, holidays, Sunday dinners, a spare bed for a kid who needs quiet, a table to pay tuition from without anyone else taking a cut, a place where my wife's quilt covers the bed and will always cover the bed. I went back to the kitchen. The folder from noon was still there. I pressed my palm to it. It felt cold and thin. Behind it was the fridge with magnets and a calendar with my messy handwriting. Lined there were the dates for the next 6 months. Dentist, oil change, school concert. I am not complicated. I like lists and I keep them. I took a clean sheet of paper from the drawer. I reached for a marker. I wrote the words slowly, so I would not rush. I kept it plain and human. I put the pen down. I breathed. I was not going to let panic write this story. That's when I decided to sign, with my own terms. I kept my terms simple and visible. I wrote house rules at the top, printed straight, bold enough to see from across the kitchen. I added 3 short lines. First line, guests treat the owner with respect. Second line, no threats. Third line, any guest who threatens leaves the next day. I did not add codes or penalties. I did not add maybes. I wrote the last line again, slower so I would feel it in my hand. I taped the page to the fridge with the same blue painter's tape I had used last month when I refreshed the baseboards. The tape looked odd against the stainless steel, but odd is fine when you want eyes to land. I set a pen under it on the counter, the cheap kind that always starts on the first try. I wanted no excuses. I opened the drawer where I keep chargers. I found the short black cord that fits my phone and plugged it in by the entry table. The phone made that small click when it started to charge. I opened the voice recorder and checked that the red button worked. It did. I set the phone face down, screen dim. If they said what I knew they would say, I wanted the words, not the fight. The quiet of the house helped. The small things tell a man where he is and what matters. I sat with a notepad and made a list of the next day, not because I would show it to anyone, but because it steadies me. I thought about calling my daughter, and I did not. She would come in hot, and I did not need hot. I needed straight lines. I needed a witness who would sit and watch and say nothing unless asked. So I texted Mr. Alvarez from next door. We have traded ladders and sugar and silence for 20 years. He mows his lawn in neat stripes that make the whole block look better. I wrote, "Coffee at 9 tomorrow?" Could use a neighbor's eyes. He replied with a thumbs up. He is a man of few words and the right words. I stood in the doorway to the spare room and looked at the boxes that still held my wife's winter sweaters. I had not been able to move them. I am not a man who prays much, but I said my wife's name. Quiet. In the room where her sweaters still smelled faintly like lavender sachets and old wood. I told her I was going to try something firm and simple and right. I told her I might fail. I told her I loved her. I closed the door. Back in the kitchen, I set 2 coffee cups and a third for Mr. Alvarez. I set out the sugar bowl with the tiny spoon our granddaughter loves. I looked at the clock. I had hours to wait and nowhere else to be but here, inside the house I built with a woman who understood that love is work. I took the folder my son had left and slid it into a drawer. I would bring it out when I needed to. I would not let it sit there like a threat. I washed my hands and wiped the counter down until it shone. I'm not sure why that mattered, but it did. Clean counters make for clean choices. Clean choices leave less room for lies. I turned off lights one by one. In the dark, the blue tape on the fridge glowed like a small flag on a quiet hill. It settled me. It said, "You are not lost. You live here. You choose." They arrived at 8:55 with a notary and a new tone. The trunk of their car was closed now. My daughter-in-law carried a tote bag and her stiff smile. The notary had a clipboard and a kind of bored patience. My son came in behind them and did not take off his shoes. "Let us get this done," she said, brisk like a nurse before a shot. I poured coffee. The kitchen smelled warm and alive. I set the cups on the table and placed the house rules page down beside them. My son glanced at it and looked away. The notary sat, flipping pages to find the tabs. He pointed to a line with yellow tape. "Sign here," he said to me. I picked up the pen. My hand did not shake. I read the first section as the notary pointed. I had seen it all last night. I had even practiced my signature on a scratch pad until it felt steady again. Getting older steals many things. It does not have to steal neat handwriting. "Do you understand what this is?" the notary asked, by rote. "Yes," I said. "I do." My daughter-in-law watched me like a hawk watches a small field. Her eyes moved too fast. She wanted to be at the bank already. She wanted the proof. She wanted to call someone and say that it was done. Impatience is a kind of hunger. It makes people reach too far, too soon. I signed where they told me. I slid the papers back, one by one. The notary stamped and signed with his small, quick motions. He was part of many stories. Mine was only his 11 o'clock. My son leaned back and let out a thin breath. "There we go," he said. He looked around the kitchen like it was already his and he was deciding which cabinets to change. I held up a hand. "One more thing," I said. I picked up the house rules page and set it square in front of them. The tape made a soft, sticky sound when it left the fridge. "I live by this in my home," I said. "Anyone who stays here signs it. It keeps us all clear." She laughed. "Dad," she said, testing the word like it might bite her, "we do not need rules. We are family." "Then it will be easy," I said. I slid the pen across the table. Sign if you plan to be here while we sort things. She wanted to wave it away, but her greed got there first. It always did. Sign and get on with it. Control the space. Own the next hour. My son nodded toward the page, impatient. Just sign it, he told her, and his tone had that small crack of contempt he saved for people he thought were slow. She signed. He signed. The pen made those quick little scratches that mean nothing until they mean everything. I took the page back. I put it under the notary's clipboard so it would pick up a date impression. It is a small thing, but I like dates on paper. They stop arguments before they start. My daughter-in-law stood. "We will have movers by Friday," she said. "We can get you sorted by then." I stood too. I smiled. It felt almost natural. They both signed without reading. My son said, "There." Simple people call it a trap when you make someone live by what they signed. I called it justice. For years I had cushioned my son when he stumbled. I took the hit so he did not have to. He learned to push until something gave. The house rules were not a trick. They were a mirror. If he chose threat, he chose the door. I could not preach respect and then make an exception when it was my turn to be tested. Life had to change. The house could not be everyone's emergency plan and my burden. I would run it like I ran my workbench. Tools in place, rules on the wall, witness when needed. No yelling, no scenes. If they would choose betrayal, I would not cushion them anymore. My revenge would be there. The house rules are going to stay. The fallout is going to reshape our lives. You won't believe how much the situation is about to escalate. But before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. They came back before dinner with 2 suitcases and the same stiff smiles. The trunk was closed now. They rang the bell and waited like polite guests. I opened the door. My son stepped in first. He brushed past the banister nick and did not look at it. He used to stop there and fit his toy trucks between the spindles. He used to say the stairs were a bridge. That boy had patience. He could spend an hour making a tiny road out of pennies. The man in front of me did not have an hour for anything unless it paid. "We will stay tonight," my daughter-in-law said. "It will be easier to get everything going tomorrow." 2 rooms are made up," I said. "Leave my bedroom alone." She smiled. "Of course." They brought their bags into the living room and set them by the couch like anchors. She walked through the kitchen with a hand on the counters, slow, like she was shopping. She stopped at the stove and frowned. "This is tired," she said. "We should upgrade to gas." "We?" I asked. She kept moving. "We can refinish the cabinets white. Lighter sells better." The word sells hit me like a hand on the back. I steadied myself on the table I had oiled last spring. My son was in the hallway measuring something in his head. He turned to me. "We will make this place sing," he said. "No offense, Dad, but your style is old. Old. I was old. That was true. The house was lived in. That was true. But sells was not a word you use for your father's house unless you are planning to turn blood into market." I made stew warm on the stove. We ate at the table my wife had traced circles on. My daughter-in-law took small bites and checked her phone after each one. My son told a story about a client who bought a townhouse for less than it was worth because the owner was motivated. He laughed when he said motivated. When he was 9, he used to laugh hard enough to fall off the couch at knock-knock jokes. He would try to keep a straight face and fail. That sound was light. The laugh in my kitchen that night was thin and sharp. After dishes, they took the guest room with the twin beds. I watched them move my wife's quilt to a chair. The quilt was not fancy, blue and white. I had folded it there last week because the room gets cold at night. They put their suitcase in its place on the bed and zipped it open like a flag. I stood in the hall after they closed the door. Their voices came through in pieces. "By Christmas," she said, "we will have him settled somewhere. That board and care near the freeway is cheap." "Not yet," he said. "He will sign the rest." Do not spook him. Do not get sentimental, she said. You know how he is. I went to my room and sat on the edge of the bed. The mattress dipped the way it always did. The dip felt like a hand on my back. I thought of my son at 6 bringing me screws from the little red tin while I fixed a cabinet door. He used to ask, "This one? Or this one?" He loved being part of a fix. That boy would have hated this plan. I stared at the house rules taped to the fridge until the letters steadied. The first line was simple. The second line was clear. The third line was waiting. I turned off the kitchen light and let the blue tape glow in the dim. I learned their intent. I slept light and woke twice. The little clock ticked and kept me honest. The window held my reflection, older and plain. I ran a hand over my face. I have the same nose my grandson has. He calls it the family hook. He says it like a joke, and then he kisses my cheek. That is what family should feel like. I heard muffled voices from the guest room. At first it was just the rise and fall. Then words. They were not careful. "We need to push him," my daughter-in-law said. "He signed today. He will sign tomorrow. If he balks, we roll the incompetency. He will fold." "He will be mad," my son said. His voice was not worried, it was annoyed. "He will make it dramatic. He always does this slow, stubborn thing. Then we stop visiting for a while," she said. "Make him lonely. He hates being alone. He will fold," he said. "He always folds." I felt the words like cold water down the back. Fold. That was how they saw me. Not a man. A napkin. I leaned on the counter until my breath evened out. The boy who used to stand on a chair beside me and stir cake batter with his tongue out had grown into a man who planned to starve me of company to get a house. I walked to the entry table and picked up my phone. The red record button sat in its place like a small decision. I tapped it. The screen lit in the dark. I put it face down on the table, microphone up. I did not want to sneak. I wanted the truth to sit in the open air of my home. The clock ticked. The fridge hummed. Their voices kept going. "We can clear the junk," she said. "We can hire a stager." "That quilt has to go," he said. "It makes the room feel small." "Stop talking about blankets," she said, irritated. "We need to get the deed secured and change the mail." "You said the bank will look at us better if we own a house. I want that card." He made a sound. I knew. It was the sound he made when he saw money on a plate. He used to make a different sound for joy. When we built a bookshelf together, he used to whistle off key while the stain dried. That sound had gone quiet years ago. "I will handle him in the morning," he said. "He is soft." "He will sign anything if you say it is for family." "Then make him feel like he is hurting the grandkids," she said. "That always flips him." I closed my eyes. I felt something hard rise in me. Not anger like a flare. Not heat. Something older. Like the old tools in my garage. Worn, but solid in the hand. The part of me that keeps a house standing in a storm. I did not raise my voice. I did not practice a speech. I watched the red numbers climb on the phone screen. 1 minute. 2, 3. When their talking stopped, I picked up the phone. I saved the file. I named it Kitchen Night. I set the phone beside the sugar bowl with the tiny spoon. I put out 3 cups again. The plan was small. The plan was enough. I went back to bed. The sheets were cool. I thought about my boy in a Little League uniform, chalk on his knees, mud on his cheeks, climbing into my truck and falling asleep before we left the lot. He used to trust me to drive him home. That is what fathers do. His voice from the guest room replayed on a loop in my head. He will fold. The evidence sat ready on my phone. The morning came clean. I opened the blinds at 8:30. The yard was wet from the sprinklers. The roses needed trimming. I set the coffee to brew and took the house rules down from the fridge. The blue tape lifted slow and left no mark. I set the page on the table and flattened the corners with my hand. The phone sat face down beside the sugar bowl, ready. At 8:57, Mr. Alvarez rang the bell. He wore his usual plaid shirt and cap. He held a newspaper under his arm. He looked at me, then over my shoulder at the hallway. I nodded. No words needed. He stepped in and wiped his feet on the mat even though he did not have to. That is what respect looks like. You do the small things without being told. "Coffee?" I asked. "Please," he said, and sat where my wife used to sit when neighbors came by. He glanced at the house rules, read it, and gave a small nod. He did not ask. He did not need the backstory. He knew me. He has watched me for 20 years push a mower in straight lines, and he has watched my son take phone calls on speaker on the porch and laugh too loud. At 9 o'clock, my son and his wife came into the kitchen like they were late for a meeting. He wore a pressed shirt he never wore to visit me. She carried a pen. They looked at Mr. Alvarez and masked their surprise. "We did not know you had company," she said. "Neighbor," I said. "Coffee." My son put on a warm voice I had not heard in years. "Good to see you, Mr. Alvarez." He had used that same tone at 9 when he wanted a second slice of pie. Then it had been cute. Now it felt like a cheap tool. "Morning," Mr. Alvarez said. He looked at the cups. He looked at their faces. He looked at the paper on the table. He said nothing else. "We need to get to the bank," my daughter-in-law said, "and then the insurance office. The sooner, the better." "In a minute," I said. I set the house rules in front of them. "Read this first." She waved a hand. "We signed that last night. We do not need a lecture." "It is not a lecture," I said. "It is words on a page. Your names are on it." My son reached for the sugar and did not pour any. He liked to take the spoon and scrape the bottom. He used to do that as a boy to make the last grains count. He tapped the spoon and made a small rhythm on the saucer. Impatient. He always tapped when he felt trapped. "Hurry up, Dad," he said. "We have things to do." "You do," I said, "and so do I." I picked up the phone. I turned it over. The screen blinked awake. I opened the recording labeled Kitchen Night. I did not explain. I did not warn. The kitchen was my house. My rules were on the table. My neighbor sat in a chair with his hands wrapped around a warm cup, a witness in denim and wool. Their smiles thinned. I pressed play. The voices from the guest room came into the kitchen, whole and clean. No music under, no static, just them. My daughter-in-law's voice filled the air. "If he balks, we roll the incompetency. He will fold." My son's voice followed, flat and familiar. "He will fold. He always folds." The sound of their plan sat between the cups and the sugar bowl like a fourth person. Mr. Alvarez did not look at me. He looked at them. He did not blink much. My daughter-in-law reached for the phone. I moved it an inch closer to me. She pulled her hand back, then laughed like a loose hinge. "You recorded us?" "That is disgusting. I heard you," I said. I did not want to argue about whether I heard right. My son tried a new tone. Soft. "Dad, you took it out of context." "You were in my house," I said. "You signed this." I slid the house rules to them and placed my finger on the last line. No threats. "Guests who threaten leave the next day." He pushed the paper back with one finger like it might stain him. "We are not guests. We own this now." "You own a promise to behave," I said. "You broke it." He looked at Mr. Alvarez, then back at me. He tried to use shame. It used to work. "You would throw your own family out? Over a little misunderstanding?" I looked at him and saw the boy who once stood beside me in the garage and blew sawdust off a board like it was birthday cake smoke. He used to wait for my nod before he used the drill. He respected the tool. The man in front of me had treated me like a tool. "It is not a misunderstanding," I said. It is a plan. Your plan. I tapped the phone. Your words. My daughter-in-law stood. Her chair scraped the tile hard. We are not leaving, she said. You cannot make us. You will be alone here. You will be scared. I was alone last night, I said. I was not scared. Silence took a seat. The coffee steamed. The paper tape marks still showed faintly on the fridge where the house rules had hung. I stood and took the keys from the bowl by the door. I set them on the table. Leave the spare, I said. Take your bags. You can come back for a conversation when you can talk without threats. Not before my son's face went tight. He leaned in close, trying to make his height a tool. You are making a mistake, Dad. You need us. I need peace, I said. I need the truth. I need my house to be a house, not a scoreboard. He looked at Mr. Alvarez again, as if a neighbor's eyes could be cowed. Mr. Alvarez raised his cup and drank. He was not there to fight. He was there to see. That was enough. My daughter-in-law pointed at the deed on the counter, the one the notary had stamped yesterday. This makes it ours, she said. The house rules make this morning yours, I said. You chose what happens next. Her impatience broke through the last of her smile. You are cruel, she said. Cruel would have been signing in the dark and pretending I did not know what I heard, I said. This is daylight. I picked up the house rules, folded it once, and slid it into the drawer with the notary's pages. I did not raise my voice. I gave them the only deadline that made sense in a home. Today, I said, go pack. My son whispered, You tricked us. I kept my voice level. I told you the rules, I said. You wrote your own exit. They did not fold. She reached for her phone and started typing fast, eyes hard. He paced the kitchen like he was looking for a better version of the truth in the cabinets. Lawyer, he said. Title office. He said police like a dare. Mr. Alvarez sat with his coffee and watched. The morning turn changed the angle, not the climb. They were not going to leave quiet. They would try to make this loud and messy to shame me into backing down. That was fine. If they wanted an audience, we would give the audience daylight and paper. The fight was far from over. The stakes were hardening with each second. We moved to the porch because the kitchen felt too small for what was coming. The morning was bright and cold. The paint on the rail looked flatter than it used to. Mr. Alvarez stood with his newspaper under his arm. He took the top step and stayed there, steady as a fence post. My son and his wife went ahead of me and took the center of the porch like it was a stage. She had her phone out. Her thumbs were fast. I am calling the police, she said, more for effect than need. She wanted me to flinch. I did not. Call, I said. While she dialed, I looked at my son. His face was set in that smooth blank he used when he did not want to show fear. He used to fail at that. When he was 10 and lied about breaking a window, his ears went red and gave him away. That boy's body told the truth. This man had learned to hold it in. The cost of that showed up in the eyes. They were tired and hungry at the same time. The patrol car rolled up fast, then slow, lights off. The officer stepped out with a polite face and a measured walk. He asked for names. He asked for the short version. She is my daughter-in-law, I said. He is my son. They stayed last night as guests. They threatened me. They signed my house rules. The rules say guests who threaten leave the next day. She jumped in with a push of words. He is confused. He gave us the house. We are caring for him. He is being manipulated. I handed the officer the paper from the fridge. The blue tape still clung to the corners like a smudge of sky. Their signatures sat at the bottom, fresh and plain. I did not say anything else. I let the page work. The officer read. He looked at the signatures. He looked at them. Did you sign this? She hesitated. My son answered. We signed something. Not that Mr. Alvarez shifted his newspaper and spoke for the first time. I watched them sign that page, he said. Simple. No heat. I held up my phone. There is also a recording, I said, of the threat. The officer nodded once. I will hear it. I pressed play and set the phone in his open hand. He listened. He did not change his face. When the clip ended, he handed the phone back to me and took a breath like a man who understands a clean thing when he sees it. This is a civil matter, he said, turning to them. But the recording is clear. The rule is clear. You are guests. He has asked you to leave today. You should leave. My daughter-in-law's mouth thinned into a line that wanted to be a smile and failed. He is old, she said. You cannot take his word. The officer looked at me and then at her. I am taking his word and his paper, he said. I am also taking his neighbor's word. That is 3 points of proof. He gestured to the steps. You can collect your things. Keep it calm. My son stared at me like he was staring down the length of a bad bet. He had that look once when he was 13 and pushed a second base steal against a catcher with a long arm. He knew he was caught. He ran anyway because he could not admit he had misread the throw. He was tagged, hard. He cried then and hated it. He did not cry now. He just let the anger harden. He spoke low. You will regret this. I did not answer him. I looked at the officer. Thank you. The officer tipped his head and stepped down to the walk. He would not escort them out. He did not need to. He had put the truth on the table in daylight. That was enough. He matched signatures and dates. He heard their words. He told them to go. They dragged their feet. The officer watched. My neighbors went back inside. I asked Mr. Alvarez for a ride. 5 minutes, I said. He nodded, got his keys, and we left the patrol car in front of my house like a marker. We drove to the title office near the grocery store. I had been there once to pick up a certified copy of my marriage license after my wife passed. The air inside was cool and smelled like paper and toner. A clerk in a gray sweater looked up and gave the kind smile that knows people only come here when they need something settled. How can I help? She asked. I need to see who owns my house, I said. I gave her the parcel number from the tax bill and my driver's license. My hands shook, so I set them flat on the counter. She typed. The screen threw lines of small text. She scrolled and then printed 2 pages. She put a blue stamp at the bottom. The sound of the stamp was a comfort. It sounded like a decision. As of 9:46 this morning, she said, reading with me, the owner of record is you. She pointed to my name. There is no deed recorded since your last refinance. If a deed was signed yesterday, it has not been recorded. It is not showing here, not in the queue, nothing pending. Whatever I'd signed hadn't been recorded. Public record still showed me as owner, and any dispute belonged in civil court. I let out a breath I did not know I was holding. The room felt steadier. Her words made the morning bigger and simpler at the same time. My son and his wife had moved fast. They had not moved smart. If someone tries to record something, I asked, will there be a note? There will be a document number, and we can see it, she said. You can also set up an alert on our website to email you if anything posts against your parcel. She slid a small card with the website address toward me. It is free. Mr. Alvarez looked at me. Do it, he said. He did not add anything else. He knew I would. I paid the small fee for the certified copies. The clerk stapled the receipts and put everything in a manila envelope. She wrote my name on the tab. It felt like a little shield in my hand. On the way out, I called my son on speaker. He did not pick up. I left a message, plain and short. Title is unchanged. I have the paper. You will not bully me in my own house. Mr. Alvarez drove us back. The patrol car still sat out front. Through the window, I saw my daughter-in-law tossing clothes into a bag. She pulled my wife's quilt off the chair and folded it badly, then dropped it back with annoyed hands. The fold was wrong. I would fix it later. Some things you fix for yourself, because the fixing is part of the living. We walked up the path. The officer met us at the door. "All calm," he said. "They are packing." I held up the envelope. "I went to the title office," I said. He nodded. "Good." I stepped into my kitchen and put the envelope down beside the sugar bowl. I did not wave it. I did not taunt them with it. I set it there like you set a heavy tool on a bench. It was there if needed. It told the truth if asked. The clerk's sentence rested in my head like a level finding center. As of 9:46, you are the only owner of record. Drama likes an audience. By noon, my daughter-in-law had texted 2 people on the block. Mrs. Cho's nephew knocked once and left. A couple from the corner walked by slow and pretended to look at their phones. My son sent a message to my daughter about me acting out. I saw the preview on my screen and put the phone face down. I was done being played with through my own family. They carried bags to the porch and left them there like they had time to spare. She made a loud call on the steps about lawyers. He stood in the doorway and stared at me like he could hold me in place by will. "You are hurting us," he said. "I am telling the truth," I said. I tapped the envelope and the phone. "These do not lie." He walked closer. His voice dropped. "We could have made this work." "You tried," I said. "You tried fear, and you tried hunger, and you tried shame. That is not work. That is taking." Her envy bled through the cracks. "You sat in this house for years while we struggled," she said. "You had space. We had nothing." "You had our table every Sunday," I said. "You had my time in my hands and my wallet when your car broke and when your rent went up. I am not ashamed of giving. I am ashamed of how blind I was to where it was going." I opened the drawer and took out one more envelope. It was already addressed in my neat block letters to my granddaughter's school. Her name looked clean on the line. I set it on the table where my wife used to trace circles with her finger. "This pays her tuition for the semester," I said. "The account is in her name now. She does not need a gatekeeper. She does not need a funnel. She needs school and peace." My daughter-in-law stared at it like it was a trick. "You are cutting us off," she said. "Yes," I said. "Not the grandchildren." "You?" My son's face flushed. "We are your family," he said, like the word itself should bend the room. "Family does not threaten," I said. "Family does not put elders in a cheap room by the freeway because it pencils out better. Family does not sell what it did not build." He looked at Mr. Alvarez, then at the officer, then at me. He could not find a foothold. He tried one last move. "You will regret this." I thought of him at 8, holding a line level while I drove 2 screws into a stud. He had stuck his tongue out with the effort of keeping the bubble in the center, and then he had grinned at me when I said perfect. He had loved doing it right. The man in front of me wanted something for nothing, and called it love. I picked up the envelope for my granddaughter and placed it on top of the title papers. "This goes out today," I said. "Not one more dollar through you." My daughter-in-law's smile vanished. The mask fell. "You are done," she said. "No," I said. "You are." I slid the envelope across the table. "For her school." "Nothing for you." I set the deadline at sundown. The officer stayed until 2 and then left after I signed a short form that said he had been here to keep the peace. "Call if it turns," he said. I nodded. The patrol car rolled away. The house got quiet in a way that made every small sound louder. They did not hurry. That was the last bit of control they could pretend to have. She folded clothes with angry hands. He stood in the hall and called people who did not pick up. They met at the doorway and spoke low and then louder. Some words you cannot pull back into your mouth. They used a few of those. I did not answer them. I went to the garage and found the spare lock set I had saved from the old back door. The screws were taped to it. I laid it on the workbench like a promise. At 4, they dragged the suitcases onto the porch. She bumped the blue case into the banister nick and did not look at it. He picked up my wife's quilt from the chair and shoved it into a bag. I walked over, took it gently, and laid it over my arm. "Not this," I said. He let go. He did not argue. Some lines even they would not cross in front of me. "Keys," I said. He stared at me like the word was foreign. He reached into his pocket and put the key on the table. It made a small sound that felt larger than it was. She did the same. Her hand shook. She hid it by arguing with the zipper on the suitcase until it closed. "I wanted this to be kind," I said. "You made it hard." She laughed, brittle as always. "You think you are the good guy." "I think I am done being your cushion," I said. My son looked at me with eyes I still knew. For a flicker the boy was there. He swallowed it. He lifted a bag. He stepped outside. She followed. Mr. Alvarez, still in the same chair, nodded once as they passed. He did not gloat. He did not flinch. On the porch, they stood under the afternoon light. The street stayed very interested in gardens and mail. I did not raise my voice. I did not wave papers. I held the quilt over my arm and the envelope for my granddaughter in my hand. "Go," I said. They went down the steps. The car doors shut. The engine turned over. They pulled away without looking back. I watched until the car turned at the corner and was gone. Inside, I went to the garage. I swapped the lock cylinder on the front door. The screws turned smooth. The plate seated tight. The old habit calmed me. Work is a kind of prayer. It says, "I will keep this place." By 6, the bags were gone, the keys were on the table, and the new lock turned clean under my hand. I closed the door and let the quiet settle. The boundary was set. A week had passed. It was time for another confrontation. They came in hot. The courthouse lobby smelled like floor cleaner and old paper. Fluorescent lights made every face look tired. My son paced with a manila folder that looked a lot like mine. My daughter-in-law talked into her phone until a security guard told her to stop. He saw me and rushed over, panic-led. "Dad, take this back," he said. "We went too far." It was stress. We can fix it. I kept my hands at my sides. "Sit," I said. He did not. Rage arrived. "You blindsided us," he said. "We will tell the judge you are unstable." I took out my phone. I did not press play. I did not need to yet. "You threatened me in my house," I said. "You signed the rules." He moved closer. "We will say you hit me." The security guard stepped in. "Back up," he said. My son backed up 2 inches. He switched to bargaining. "We will sell in a year, not now. We will keep you here. You can have the front room." "I have my room," I said. "I have my house." My daughter-in-law added poison. "We will tell the grandchildren you lost your mind." I met her eyes. "I will tell them the truth," I said, "and then I will show them proof." The clerk called my name. We went into a small hearing room. The judge looked like she had heard every version of family before. She listened while the clerk swore us in. My son started fast. "He is confused. He does not eat right. Evidence," the judge said. I set the house rules on the table. Their signatures were clear. I played 30 seconds of kitchen night. I slid the stamped printout from the title office across the table. I added last month's tax bill with my name at the top. My voice stayed low. They threatened to declare me incompetent if I did not sign. They stayed as guests. I asked them to leave. They refused. My son tried denial. "That recording is out of context." The judge did not blink. "Do you dispute that it is your voice?" she asked. Silence. Then he said, "No." She turned to my daughter-in-law. "Do you dispute that you said those words?" "No," she said, jaw tight. The judge wrote for a long minute. The room was very quiet. I thought about my son at 10, tapping a baseball in the dirt, scared of the pitch but standing anyway. He had looked at me for courage then. The man next to me looked at me now like I had stolen something he was owed. The judge looked up. "Here is what I will do," she said. "I am issuing a temporary stay-away order for 30 days. You may not enter his home, contact him except through counsel, or communicate through third parties to harass him. Any dispute about title belongs in civil court. Until a court says otherwise, he is the only owner of record." My son's face fell through 2 stages at once, shock, then fury. He spoke low so the microphones would not catch it. "You will regret this." "Last word," the judge said, eyes on him. "If you violate this order, you will see me again, and you will not like that visit." We left. In the hall, he started up again. Threats, then promises, then threats. I put the phone to my ear and pretended to call, and he stopped. He knew I had him on tape. The security guard walked with me to the door. The order would post by evening. I met my lawyer after lunch. He listened while I laid out the morning. He did not ask for drama. He asked for dates. I handed him the maroon folder, house rules with their signatures, the title office printout, the hearing order, and a copy of the tuition envelope for my granddaughter. "We keep this simple," he said. "We'll update. No contest clause. Direct support to grandchildren only. You control access." "I do not want to punish the kids," I said. "You are not," he said. "You are protecting them from adults who make bad choices." He printed 2 pages. The language was plain. If my son or his wife contested, they would lose their share. The grandchildren's support bypassed them and landed at the school or a small custodial account I controlled. No more funnels. No more excuses. My wife would have liked this. Clean and direct. No frills. "Last part," he said. "A letter." I wrote it by hand. I kept it short. "You do not enter my home. You do not ask for money. You may see me by appointment after a written apology that names what you did, and after 6 months without a threat or a lie. Anything less is no." I signed it. My pen did not stutter. He sealed the will and the letter in a new envelope and handed it to me. "Keep it with the rest," he said. "Send the letter if they call. Do not argue. Just send the letter I paid him and left." On the sidewalk, I watched a father and a boy move a new ladder out of the store and into a truck. The boy steadied the bottom while the father guided it up. 2 hands doing one job well. It put a bite in my throat and then eased it. At home, I slid the new papers into the maroon folder. I put the folder on the top shelf in the hall closet where I keep the good things. Old photos, my wife's ring, the letter from my doctor. The shelf held firm. I looked around my kitchen. The sugar bowl sat where it always sat. The phone lay face down. The house rules page went back on the fridge with clean blue tape. I stood there a long minute and let the quiet do its work. The boundary was finished in ink. I mailed the tuition envelope before dinner. The clerk at the post office stamped it and smiled at the name on the front. "A good day for mail," she said. I nodded. It felt like that. On the way home, I picked up lemons and a loaf of bread. Habit is a rail you can hold. Back at the house, I trimmed the roses my wife planted. I bagged the clippings and set them by the bin. The banister nick caught the light. I ran my thumb over it. My grandson would be back one day when the adults remembered how to act. He would run his truck across the step again, and I would tell him to slow down. Inside, I washed the good mugs and put them on the rack. I folded my wife's quilt along the old crease line and spread it on our bed. The fabric still felt like her shoulders in winter. I stood there until the ache sat down where it belonged. The phone buzzed once. A message from my son. A single line, angry and small. I did not open it. I slipped the letter from my lawyer into an addressed envelope and left it by the door. If he wanted words, he would get the right ones. No fights. No late-night calls. No more folds. I set up the title alert from the clerk's card. It took 3 minutes. A small green check mark told me it was done. I locked the front door and tried the new key again. Smooth. I brewed tea and sat at the table I had oiled last spring. I looked at the chair my wife used to favor when she was tired. I remembered her hand tracing the wood grain. I could almost hear the tiny sound her ring made when it touched the table. I let the memory come and go without pushing it away. This was not the ending I wanted. The crack in the family ran right through the center of the room. It would not close with a hug and a promise. That was bitter. It would stay bitter for a while. But the house was steady. The rules were where they needed to be. The roses would bloom again. The grandchildren would be funded without games. The quiet in my kitchen was not empty. It was mine. Peace is not cheap. Tonight, it was paid for. Is it cruel to make family live by the rules they signed? Or is that the only way a home stays a home? Have I done the right thing? Please share your thoughts in the comments.
My grandpa's words really happened. I believe him. If you want more true tales stories like this, hit subscribe.